Welcome to this King's Claim devlog. Last episode, I got the gates in the walls added, which allows workers to go in and through the gates, through walls, so long as the gates are owned by the same player, basically. So that just means the red workers can go through red gates, blue workers can go through blue gates. And also fixed a bunch of things having to do with placement of walls and all of that. The next bug, which might be fixed, is that as the workers get further and further from the original base, you'll see like this red worker over here is going to a quarry at the far end of the map. And it's a little bit problematic only because it means a couple of things. One, it's most efficient because the worker has to travel less distance in order to get back to where they're building the wall. So good from that standpoint, but it's bad from the standpoint that once blue finishes these walls and then closes it, that red worker is going to be trapped inside this wall. So I think there's kind of two. So that's one problem, is that the workers don't really have an affinity for one particular quarry, which I should probably have them do. The second thing, okay, so that first thing's definitely not fixed, actually. The second problem is watch what happens when red starts to build its third ring of walls outside of its castle, which will happen momentarily here. It's going to finish the walls, and it's going to start the third ring right here. And at some point, there's going to be a red worker kind of in this corner, and it's going to try to pathfind from this working on this wall to a quarry. And before the code changes that I just made right before I started this recording, sometimes the workers would pathfind from here and say, well, the closest quarry is over here, but that quarry is no longer accessible because it's enclosed by blue's walls. And so it wouldn't finish building these walls. I think that's fixed now, because now the workers are pathfinding to the closest reachable quarry, which is consistently this one. So I think that's fixed. Now I just need to probably have some kind of worker affinity kind of thing where workers basically prefer a certain quarry. Maybe I should even have the quarries owned by the player in the same way as the castle. I don't know. But anyway, so just wanted to do this quick devlog and see if I was able to get the pathfinding bug worked out. And that does seem to be fixed. So let's go to the next phase here. Let's start another new task. That one was T20, so let's do T21. The workers are consistently going to the nearest accessible quarry. Good. But sometimes they also pathfind to a quarry that's basically within the opposing player's territory. And as a result, they can get enclosed within the opposing player's territory, opposing player's walls. What do you think we can do to prevent workers from getting trapped in the opposing player's territory? For example, actually, I'm not even going to say a for example. Just want to see what the agent thinks about this problem. And then we'll worry about choosing a solution, either the original solution I had in mind, or maybe it'll come up with an even better solution. And if so, I'll go with that. All right. So it's going to look at the pathfinding, the territory, calculation, the enclosed regions. It's going to kind of do a review of those different things, looking at risk heuristics. That's interesting. I'm contemplating a risk heuristic within the worker class to avoid enemy-held quarries, given that the territory calculator might be computationally expensive. The idea is for each worker to evaluate the relative proximity of a quarry to its own castle versus the enemy castle. Oh, see, I like that, actually. Yeah, it probably should prefer quarries near its own castle rather than just nearby and accessible. If the quarry is closer to the enemy, it gets flagged as risky. This will directly influence pathfinding. So, okay, that's an interesting idea. So it's doing some other analysis too. It's researching edge cases, territory regions, a bunch of things. Okay, I've got it in plan mode, so it's coming up with these various things to think about. And as you can see, the idea of preferring the quarry close to its own castle is an interesting way to do an affinity-like solution, but without necessarily associating the worker and that quarry in like a fixed way. So let's see how far we get here. I don't know how much longer it's going to have to think. I'm going to get some water. Let's think about test cases. So it has test worker safety. Simulating a 2-castle game scenario, my current focus is to skip the pre-approval plan step and dive right into delivering the findings and proposed fix under T021. Well, okay. See, it's going to jump ahead and probably go right to implementation, which is tricky, but it's noting here that it had previously replaced the find closest quarry method with a method called find closest reachable quarry, which was the improvement in the bug that was fixed. While he didn't explicitly set visibility for the new method, this is just a code level issue around a method being marked private or not. Okay. Let me actually give it a tip. If you want to test a private method, simply prepend it with underscore, i.e. closest reachable quarry becomes closest reachable. You know what? Actually, I shouldn't actually give this advice right now because I should read what its plan is before really caring about those other details. All right, findings. The worker currently selects the quarry with the shortest path from its current position. Find closest reachable quarry. The gap. This logic completely ignores the strategic location of the quarry. If a worker happens to be slightly closer to a quarry, deep in enemy territory due to a forward build job, it will blindly attempt to pathfind to it, ignoring the high risk of being closed or cut off. That's correct. It thinks the root cause is in the find closest reachable quarry, only optimizes for travel time, not safety. Okay. Proposed fix. I propose the following changes to implement safety-aware pathfinding. Update the worker update to accept the castles array, which contains locations of all player castles. Update the game update to pass this information to the worker. Implement danger heuristic. Identify my castle and enemy castle. Modify the sorting logic and find closest reachable quarry to use a weighted cost instead of a raw distance. Oh, yeah, that's good. The formula is cost equals path length plus danger penalty. Okay. Danger penalties: if a quarry is significantly closer to the enemy's castle than to a player's own castle, apply a substantial penalty. For example, 20 plus tiles. This makes the worker perceive enemy quarries as much further away, effectively prioritizing safe domestic quarries unless they are completely inaccessible. Verification plan. Create a new test file. Test worker safety. Scenario. Place a worker slightly closer to an enemy quarry than a friendly quarry. And the success condition is the worker must choose the friendly quarry despite being physically further away due to the danger penalty applied to the enemy quarry. That sounds great. I like that idea. Sounds good. Go for it. So, yeah, I think we're just gonna, just go for it. I'm going to create a new branch for this. Even though this is a branch off of a branch, that's fine. Does it think it's already done? Wow. Man, sometimes this agent stuff is just incredibly, incredibly fast. Okay, so I think it marked a bunch of stuff done. I guess it's not actually done. It's doing, it's writing a test script. And I don't think that it's actually made the implementation changes just yet. So I think it's expecting to run the test suite and see a failure. This is the update to the update method it was talking about. So let's see. It's now passing in the castles array. Okay. And some other things. Test worker safety logic. Okay, so that's out now. Now it's passing in an array of castle 1, castle 2. Okay, now it's doing the definition of a safety adjusted distance. So it's adding the danger penalty. I wonder how it's going to do that exactly. Update. If there's any path, do one thing. Okay, so this is inside the state machine for when it's fetching stone or not fetching stone. Find closest reachable quarry. There's a penalty. So how's it calculate the penalty? Distance to me, distance to enemy. And distance to me factors in the castle. Okay, my castle. Okay. That sounds about like what it said it was going to do. Okay, it thinks it's done. It's completed this task. Update the find closest reachable quarry to calculate a danger score for each quarry. If a quarry is closer to an enemy's castle than to the player's own castle, substantial distance penalty is added to the cost. This makes the worker perceive dangerous quarries as far away. The game update method and the worker update to propagate castle locations down to the worker logic, enabling this spatial awareness. And it wrote some more tests. Okay, so let's see how that plays out. We'll restart the backend server. And we will load up a new game. There we go. All right, I'm going to take away the debug overlay. And I'm going to have to let this run for a while. But what this should do is the red workers should stay near the quarry that's closest to the red castle, and likewise for the blue workers in the blue quarry. This bug only revealed itself, I think, when the players or when the workers start the second ring around the castle. So pretty soon here, each side is going to complete its own first layer, and it's going to start on the second layer shortly. Okay. I also noticed that the doors do take three trips to build. The doors. I mean the gates. The gates take 3 trips to build, just like a wall takes 3 trips to build. However, there's no in-progress state for the gate. It's just sort of like not there and then suddenly there, whereas the walls sort of build up over time. So as the red workers come over here and cross the kind of midpoint where they could pathfind over to this quarry, they should basically prefer not to. Same thing with the blue. Blue guys should stay over here. So the real test will be when it gets to ring number 3 around the castle. What does it do then? As a side effect of this, of course, this means that the workers will... Oh, look at that. See, the blue guys went all the way around to get back to the quarry rather than go to the far quarry, so that's good. The real test will be, when the third ring comes, and I don't know, I kind of lost my train of thought there, but let's just see what happens. If this works, the next thing that I'll need to do is start augmenting the AI logic, the priorities. Right now, it really just considers like expansion. It doesn't really think about attacking the other side or defending from attacking players or repairing damaged walls. Right here you can see a blue wall that couldn't get finished because the worker could no longer reach it. So it also looks like that's no longer the job queue, maybe? No, it is. Okay. So when you look from the blue side, that's still a job, but it's unreachable, and therefore this worker is just frozen here. So this is definitely an improvement, but I need to do one more round of bug fixing such that a worker that has a job that is unreachable, that job should be removed from the queue, I believe. Also, you shouldn't be able to insert new jobs that are in locations that are unreachable, basically. Otherwise, I think this went really well. All the red workers are still unblocked. It's just this one blue worker that got blocked because of this wall here, so that's really good. So let me commit these changes. Workers prefer their local quarry over one that is farther from their castle. We're going to go back to this branch and merge T01021 into here. Okay, and then switch down to main, merge T020. And now all those branches should be pointed to the same place. Good. Now I can get rid of these various branches. 18, 19, gate subtask as well. 20 and 21. These are all done and merged down, so now I just have the one branch. Okay, great. Excellent work. That totally fixed the problem. New task, T022. I found one more bug during testing, namely that it's possible for there to be jobs in the job queue that are unreachable. The CPU commander logic should occasionally scan the job queue and remove any jobs that cannot be reached. It should also avoid adding new jobs to the queue that are unreachable. The reason I discovered this is that a worker was in the process of building a wall, and while it was partially done, that wall got enclosed by the opposing player, effectively leaving nothing for that worker to do. So the the job remained in the queue, unfinished, indefinitely. Makes sense? All right. I'm going to drink some more water, but it's been doing really well, so I assume it's probably going to get it. Okay, so I see how jobs are added and handled. My initial analysis is focusing on the methods responsible for job scheduling and removal. I'm looking for the points where unreachable jobs can be introduced or remain in the system. I'm now exploring the logic that determines job reachability. And am I on a new branch now? T022. I'm seeing several ways in which an unreachable job could be inadvertently scheduled. Okay. Delving into the job queue and job data structures. Examining reachability issues. I've been wrestling with the CPU commander class. It generates commands from geometric patterns, but it doesn't consider if targets are even accessible. My immediate focus is on the plan expansion method's iterative design. I'm looking now at ways to incorporate reachability checks during command generation, not just after. Great. That's kind of preventative. I don't know that we need to do that necessarily. No, I guess we kind of do. You need a little bit of preventative thing, because if it's only cleaning up jobs after the fact that are already in queued, then we could end up in a infinite loop where the plan expansion method just keeps adding the same job back to the queue and it keeps getting removed, but it shouldn't have been added in the first place. So that's fine. Clarifying reachability source. I've been thinking about what a reachable actually means. It's not just about the castle, it's about the worker's territory. But for now, using the castle as a source point simplifies things. I'll make a reproduction test in... I think that's fine, actually. That might lead to longer paths, depending on where the worker is, but using the castle is always something that should be reachable by the player is a good thing. Let's see. I'm now focusing on how workers handle unreachable jobs. My recent investigation reveals that worker update already incorporates pathfinding. If the path is not found, the worker remains stationary. Therefore, checking reachability in CPU commander is crucial to prevent unnecessary queue buildup, particularly during building tasks. This means I'll filter unbuilt candidates by reachable in plan expansion. Okay. I'm now implementing the core change, scanning the job queue for unreachable jobs and removing them. The key focus is ensuring that the CPU commander doesn't queue up jobs that the workers can't reach. I'm prioritizing this as a central component of the current update. I'm going to start with a test case to verify that these unreachable jobs are not kept in the queue. My design follows the initial suggestions. Let's start with a test case. See if we can use it to determine the stuck state. Yeah, okay. So it's going through its thing. It's building a test case. It's running the test and see what's up. I made this change to find reachable tiles. Interesting. This is going to become really inefficient, memory hungry here in a second. Not a big deal for an early prototype. The reason I'm just letting it kind of go about what it's doing is because I don't care nearly as much about computational or memory efficiency right now, because that's more of a problem for me on the server side to later optimize. I would rather iterate quickly on game design and mechanics, see how things feel, and let that guide the design. So okay, it's now considering reachable tiles as part of its get next command. Okay. Yeah. I mean, it's probably on the right track. Okay, thinks it's done. Added Pathfinder find reachable tiles. This performs a highly efficient breadth first search flood fill from the player's castle to determine all currently accessible tiles on the map in a single pass. Modified CPU commander get next command before issuing any new commands. It now scans the pending job queue and removes any jobs that are not in reachable tiles set, which is fine. Again, that sounds kind of inefficient, but it's probably correct, and I care more about correctness than efficiency right now. This prevents the AI from stalling due to blocked jobs. Smart expansion. Updated the plan expansion when selecting new wall/gate locations. It filters out any candidates that are not reachable, ensuring it does not try to build inside an enclosed area or outside the map boundaries. Oh, that's an edge case I hadn't even thought about. Created a new test case to verify. Okay, so thinks it's done. Going to stage those changes. Going to restart the backend server, and then we'll test. Start the game here. Start the game here. There we go. So, if this works, it should mean that... Oh, nope. Oh man, that's so bad. Now it's like really locked up. Is it because the CPU is pegged, doing an infinite search, or because... No, I don't think so, because we're getting this game state message. I think what happens here is as soon as it has even a partial wall, it's considering certain things as unreachable. There's also no longer any jobs in that queue. Yeah, that's a problem. So I think the game's still running because we're still getting new messages. The game's not frozen. Okay. Progress, I think. Did I stage the changes? Yeah. However, I noticed that right after a player has even a partially built ring of walls, all the workers freeze. In fact, workers are now not even finishing walls. I think this is because as soon as a wall has even 1 HP, it's flagged as a non-reachable tile, and therefore the job queue clearing logic removes the job from the job queue. At the same time, the plan expansion logic is probably trying to reinsert those jobs so that the walls get finished. However, the job clearing logic removes them again. The end result is that all workers on both sides freeze up with no new jobs to do. So, okay, progress in a sense, but we added a kind of filter and clearing logic that just created a different problem. So this should end when message ID hits about 2,000 or so. So we'll kind of just let this run and make sure it still reaches the game over screen, and make sure that hasn't broken while the AI works on fixing this up. Does it have a plan? What did it do here? Test building regression. Oh, okay. So it's adding a regression test for the previous thing that was working, I guess. Not quite sure what it's doing here. It's updating the logic around is reachable. For movement jobs, we must reach the tile itself. Check if any neighbor is reachable. Oh, okay. So I think what it's doing here is saying like a wall job is reachable if any of its neighbors are reachable. Which is really all you need. When you're building a wall, the worker walks up to the edge of the wall, puts the stone there. It doesn't have to actually stand on the place where the wall is. So that might help. Fixed regression. Okay, so it thinks it's done. The issue was that the CPU commander was aggressively removing build jobs for partially built walls because it considered the wall tile itself unreachable, blocked by the wall. I updated the logic to differentiate job types. Build/attack jobs considered reachable if any adjacent tile is reachable. Good. Move jobs require the target tile itself to be reachable. Okay. Verification created this regression test, which I can rerun later. Okay, cool. So there should be new unstaged changes. Just restart the server one more time, and we might be good. You see how it's really important to be clear and, if you can, succinct while not leaving out any relevant information in order to, basically give the AI just enough information that it can solve the problem without being overly prescriptive about what the AI should do. See, this looks right because it's actually finishing a wall before it goes on to the next one, which before it wasn't. It was just doing a partial wall, and it was finishing these rings really fast, which is an interesting defensive strategy because a partial wall would still block the enemy, so it would actually be faster to build partial walls first and then build the total walls. So it's an interesting strategy to consider. It's kind of a micro optimization that could help a player capture more land with less risk, potentially. You still need to finish a complete wall in order for the territory to be considered totally occupied, I think. But, it's good to know. What the heck? That's no good. Okay. Different behavior now. Now the workers don't freeze until the walls are completely done, and the workers are finishing the first complete ring, radius of 3 tiles away from the castle. But then the second ring of walls never gets started, and the workers just stand around. So, worker job debugging. Different bug, but progress. Okay, so it's going to go do some more research, try to figure out what's up with that. I'm going to leave it in the same session so it retains the full context of everything it's been working on up to this point, which can hopefully help it problem solve. And I'm going to go check while that's running, just make sure the game did not lock up. It's just it's not issuing new commands. So, wow, what I thought was going to be a short dev log because I fixed a bug like really quick, and I was just going to do like a 3-minute dev log just to talk about that, has turned into a little bit of edge case hunting here. So let's see, what is it going to do? I'm currently working to modify the Pathfinder code. The most recent focus is on updating Pathfinder so it can accommodate the unit argument. I believe this modification is essential for the pathfinding to function as intended, and it's a critical step in the current implementation. Okay, whatever. Don't really know what you mean by that. It's changing some function signatures, basically. Some tests about reachability of walls through gates. This is another reason why I always work on short-lived branches, because I don't want to commit every single thing to my main branch that this thing does until I have a chance to actually test it and verify. Let's see. Test reachability through gates. Test reachable tiles blocked by closed walls. Okay. All right. So still working on it. It's coming up with a new test scenario. We got the game over screen, so that's still working. The reachability thing is fixed now. Let's see. I've updated CPU commander to pass my castle as the unit, and the reachability mask will now correctly include tiles reachable through the player's gates. This change should enable expansion planning to recognize the outside of the first ring as reachable, permitting the second ring to be planned. Next step, I need to verify no regressions in existing tests. Okay. So I'm not exactly clear on, I get what it's saying here, but I'm not quite sure why that was ever broken. But whatever, we'll see what's up. Update, find reachable tiles to accept a unit context. Update CPU commander to pass its castle as the context when calculating reachability. Now the AI understands that it can walk through its own gates to reach the outside world. Okay. Well, it thinks it's done. So, time for another test. I hope you can see through this process that, even if I had perfect knowledge of exactly what I wanted to build and never did any experiments, and I always just built exactly the right game every time, that it would still take me a lot longer to do this by hand than it's going to take me to, work through a coding agent. And the reason is simply because the coding agent can read and write faster than me. And what I am supposed to bring to the relationship as a developer is the critical thinking, the design idea, and like bringing the whole, like, this is the goal I want you to achieve thing. If I asked the agent to come up with a game design given a very broad high-level game design, I'm sure it could do something. I don't know that it could effectively play its own game very well. I don't know that testing it would be very effective at that. And even if it could do all those things well, I think if you gave an agent the same game design 10 times and asked it to build you a game, you'd get 10 different games, So I really prefer this kind of this back and forth where I'm coming with the ideas, but I'm also accepting good ideas from the agent, integrating that back into the design, and we're basically collaboratively coming to an agreement on what to do. And then I review the plan for what the agent wants to do and then tell it to execute. So in this way, I'm still totally in control. You still need someone that knows what they want as an outcome. But critically, that person also needs to be able to effectively communicate with the agent and describe when it finds bugs, what the problem is. Because if you can't effectively do that communication, you're never going to be able to build anything that the agent can't one-shot on its own, Anything more complex than that, which is, almost all software that exists, you're just not going to get it to be able to build anything very good or reliable if you can't contribute those testing and debugging and communication skills as well. So anyway, okay, so one thing I noticed here, by the way, so if you look at the FPS is still plenty fast. So the front end is fine. It's rendering, but the game is going really slow, and you see that the messages are ticking in much slower. I think this is because I've added so many pathfinding and flood fill checks and stuff to check visibility and reachability and all that stuff that is probably just grinding the back end to almost to a halt. It's working, and I'm glad about that. But as you can see now, we used to easily do 10 sort of simulation ticks per second, and now it's just kind of it's just dying over here. I don't really have too many immediate ideas about that. That's basically what I suspect is happening. And if that's correct, then first of all, we need to be doing a hell of a lot less pathfinding, right? The AI is probably doing the expansion plan every single game tick, and it's probably doing the job queue cleanup every single game tick and stuff like that. So a couple things would be you don't need to run all of that analysis all the time. Another thing would be there's probably some efficiency to be had for caching. You could cache pretty much all of the reachability results and reuse them until the next wall is built, and then you could recalculate some of those things. But you could probably keep using that cache for a little while. Like you could incrementally bust that cache and rebuild it over time. You don't have to do it in one giant shot, because it's not really a big deal if the cache is a little bit, 3 or 4 ticks out of date. I mean, that could lead to some situations where workers get locked in where they shouldn't get locked in, but that basically just simulates the idea that, that like a human player is looking at the map, but they may be, a fraction of a second behind the actual game state, or like if they're not paying attention in one corner of the map, their mental map for what's going on in the game might just be out of date by several seconds, actually. So it's not the worst thing in the world. I'm not really going to do anything about it right now because, again, I'm focused on correctness. I can always optimize for speed, efficiency, and like deduplicating work over time. What I'm really, really happy about at this point, even though the game's running super slow, is that, look, we've got 4 blue workers and 4 red workers, neither of which are getting blocked at all. They have their affinity for their own like home quarry. We've got gates that allow workers to go through walls, and everything's basically working. And I was able to describe all this to the agent and get it to build all this stuff. That's fantastic. So I think I'm going to call this a success and call an end to this particular devlog, although I am really curious what happens when it finishes this 3rd ring. So I'm probably just going to have to watch it myself rather than sit here and make you watch it. But I wonder if it's going to stop or if it just keeps going. I assume, well, the game's actually almost to 2,000 ticks, so the game's probably going to end before it gets that far. Maybe I can make you wait. Just another 20 ticks here or so. Okay. Yeah, so cool. Okay. Anyway, that's it for this devlog. I'd say overall, totally successful. We've moved forward in terms of capability. We've regressed in terms of performance, but it's way more important to have correct code than it is fast code, because you can always take correct code, look for inefficiencies, and remove them. Have the computer do less, and it just naturally gets faster if you ask a computer to do less computation. But so long as the correctness is there, we should be okay. So I do expect, this is the first time I've designed an entire game from the get-go, from scratch, using an LLM agent. So I'm certain this won't be the first time I run into performance issues. My plan is to just keep asking the agent to focus on well-defined, self-contained tasks and little iterations, so it doesn't go completely crazy and like refactor all the code and boil the ocean and all that stuff. So I think that's it for this devlog. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.